we are going to discuss sources of Guptas, that is part 2. In the part 1, in the last video, we discussed archaeological sources of the Guptas period. Originally, sources of two types, archaeological and literary sources. In the last video, we completed archaeological sources, that is epigraphs, numismatics, monuments. How these epigraphics, numismatics and monuments are helped to understand the Gupta's period, that we completed. Now, literary sources. In the literary sources can be divided into two parts: foreign literary sources, Indian literary sources. Yeah, coming to the point of the foreign literary sources. Especially, there is only one main important foreign literary source, that was Fahian. Fahian wrote Fukoki. Fahian, he wrote Fukoki. That means the records of Western Kingdom. The records of Western Kingdom. India is west part of the China. He came to India. Fahian, he came to India from China. He was the first Chinese traveler. There were 4 Chinese travelers came to India: Fahian, Huyansang, Wang Huyansti, Yitzing. 4 people came to India. 4 Chinese travelers came to India. Among these 4, Fahian was the first one. He wrote about the records of Buddhist kingdom. Records of Buddhist kingdom. Not Western kingdom. Records of the Buddhist kingdom. He wrote about India, that is, India is having more Buddhist monks are there in India. He came to India during the time of the Chandragupta II period. Chandragupta II, he was also called as Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Chandragupta II period, also called as Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Chandragupta Vikramaditya period. Fahian, he visited India. And Fahian wrote Fukoki, that is the records of the Buddhist kingdom. In this book, he speaks about India during the time of the Gupta's period. He speaks about India during the Gupta's period. So according to the Fahian, all Indians are vegetarians. All Indians are vegetarians. He said that all Indians are vegetarians. And he also said that Indian villages did not lock their houses. That indicates in India of that period, we had followed very good morals and ethics. Thieves were not there. Indian villages, they did not lock their houses. That was said by the Fahian. And also Fahian visited different places, different Buddhist viharas of that period. He wrote about the Buddhist viharas. From India, he went to the Indonesia. From Indonesia to the China. He died at Kongbao, a area called Kongbao, in 414 AD. In the year 414 AD, he died at Kongbao. This is a Buddhist vihara. This is Buddhist vihara situated in the China. In China, he died at Kongbao Buddhist vihara, Fahian. After the Fahian writings, next another Chinese traveler who speaks about Gupta's period, he was Huyansang. Huyansang, he said about India. Huyansang wrote Siyuki. Huyansang, he wrote Siyuki. Siyuki means the records of Western Kingdom. This is the records of Western Kingdom. He came to India during the time of the Harshavardhana period. Harshavardhana period. And he visited, Huyansang visited Nalanda University. Nalanda University. He described about the Nalanda University. He described the position of the Nalanda University, greatness of the Nalanda University. This Nalanda University was developed by Kumaragupta I. Kumaragupta I, he developed Nalanda University. For the development of the Nalanda University, Kumaragupta I, he gave villages. He gave villages for the development of Nalanda University. So this information we are knowing from the Huyansang Siyuki book, the records of Western Kingdom. These are the foreign literary sources. After the foreign literary sources, next coming to the point of Indian indigenous literary sources. Indian indigenous literary sources. Indian literary sources. Indian literary sources. Indian literary sources. Yes, coming to the point of the Indian literary sources of Gupta's period, to speak about the Gupta's period, the first sources to speak about the Gupta's Puranas. Puranas. There are 18 Puranas. Puranas are 18. From Brahma Purana to Brahmanda Purana. Brahma Purana to Brahmanda Purana. There are 18 Puranas from Brahma Purana to Brahmanda Purana. So there are some Puranas. Puranas were 18. What Puranas speaks? Puranas speaks about, Puranas they speaks about genealogy of gods, goddesses and kingdoms. They speaks about the genealogy of gods and kingdoms, Puranas. So in that point, Puranas they gave information about the Guptas also. Because most of the Puranas were composed during the time of the Gupta's period. Most of the Puranas they composed during the time of the Gupta's period as books. Almost like Vedas, coming to the point of the Vedas. All the Vedic literature, Puranas, epics, all these came into book form during the time of the Gupta's period. Before the Gupta's period, Vedas and Vedic literature, all these were in the oral form. They are in oral form. From oral form, they came into the book form during the time of the Gupta's period. Composed as a books. They composed as a books. Among these Puranas, Vishnu Purana, Vayu Purana, Bhagavata Purana. Vishnu Purana, Vayu Purana, Bhagavata Purana. These Puranas mentioned about the Guptas and Gupta rulers. They mentioned about Guptas and Gupta rulers. But there is one problem with Puranas, to understand the Puranas. Because no Purana maintained chronological order. Just they are giving the names of the kings or giving the names of the dynasties, but they did not have any chronology. That was major problem to understand the Puranas of that period. Next after the Puranas, another literary sources which were existed during the Gupta's period, first and foremost thing is Vajjika's Kaumudi Mahotsavam. Vajjika, he wrote Kaumudi Mahotsavam. This Vajjika's Kaumudi Mahotsavam, it speaks about Chandragupta I. Chandragupta I. And in this book, poet, he explained about the Chandragupta I coronation. The coronation of Chandragupta I mentioned in this book Kaumudi Mahotsavam. How it celebrated? The celebration of the Chandragupta I coronation celebration was found in the Kaumudi Mahotsavam. That is one book. Another book which speaks about the Guptas, that is Sudraka's Mruchakatika. Sudraka's Mruchakatika. Sudaka wrote Mruchakatika. Mruchakatika means clay pot. Clay pot. It was a clay pot. Mruchakatika. Clay pot. Clay cot. It speaks about Charudatta and Vasanta Sena. The story of the Charudatta and Vasanta Sena. Charudatta and Vasanta Sena. Charudatta, he was a poor Brahman. He was a poor Brahman. Vasanta Sena, she was a courtesan. Courtesan. Courtesan means originally by that period, courtesan, most of the courtesans are the prostitutes. So Charudatta, fell in love with Vasanta Sena. The love story of Charudatta and Vasanta Sena speaks in the Sudraka's Mruchakatika. In this book, he explained about the social conditions of the Guptas. Yes, this Sudraka's Mruchakataka speaks about social conditions of the Gupta's period. Social conditions of Gupta's period. Actually, he was very poor Brahmin. He fell in love with Vasanta Sena. So this story completely dedicated to the social conditions of that period. It speaks about the social conditions of that period, how people were in the poor condition. That was one thing. And another literature, there were some other books to speak about the Gupta's period. Visakadatta, he wrote Devi Chandraguptam. Visakadatta's Devi Chandraguptam. Devi Chandraguptam of Visakadatta's, it speaks about Seka's invasions during the time of the Ramagupta period. Ramagupta, he was a son of Samudragupta. Ramagupta was son of Samudragupta. Ramagupta ruled some period. Ramagupta was defeated by the Seka ruler Basana or Rudrasimha too. Seka ruler Basana defeated Ramagupta. And Ramagupta's, in this book, he mentioned Ramagupta's wife Dhruva Devi. Mentioned that Ramagupta's wife Dhruva Devi. Finally, Dhruva Devi was taken by Basana Seka ruler, but Basana was killed by the Chandragupta II. And this period there occurred war between the Chandragupta II and Ramagupta also. Finally, Ramagupta was killed by the Chandragupta. Chandragupta married Dhruva Devi. So this is what the story of Devi Chandraguptam. Devi Chandraguptam also speaks about the Gupta's period. He also, Visakadatta also wrote another book, Mudra Rakshasam. He also wrote about the Mudra. Mudra Rakshasam speaks about Mauryans. It speaks about the Mauryans. Next to Kamandaka's Nitisara. Kamandaka wrote Niti Sara. Kamandaka he wrote Niti Sara. Kamandaka's Niti Sara speaks about the political system of the Guptas because it is a political science book. It is a political science book. That's why it speaks about political conditions of the Gupta's period. And also we are knowing from this Niti Sara the administration of Guptas, administrative system of the Guptas. We are knowing administrative system of the Guptas from the Kamandaka's Niti Sara. It is looks like Arthashastra. Kamandaka's Niti Shastra can compared with the Arthashastra. Kamandaka's Niti Sara is also considered as a Arthashastra of Guptas. It is considered as Arthashastra of Guptas. And Kamandaka was Kautilya during the time of the Gupta's period. He compared with the Kautilya during the time of the Gupta's period. So that Kamandaka's Niti Sara is a most important book to know about the Gupta's administrative system. Gupta's administrative system. Kalidas, another writer. Kalidas wrote different books. Kalidas, he wrote Malavikagni. So Malavikagni speaks about the Malavika and Agnimitra, and also we are knowing different social conditions from the Kalidas writings. Because Kalidas lived during the time of the Gupta's period. He lived during the time of the Gupta's period. That's why Kalidas, he wrote about Gupta's social conditions while he was writing about the other systems, like suppose Malavika Agnimitra. He was writing about the Malavika and Agnimitra. Malavika, Agnimitra, these two fell in love in the Vidisha kingdom, that is Ujjaini. While he was explaining, Kalidas explaining about the Ujjaini Mahankali temple, he mentioned that in the Ujjaini Mahankali temple there was going on prostitution. Malavikagni was the first literary evidence of prostitution in India. We can come to that point. So, Kalidas books, they speaks about socio-economical conditions of Guptas. Socio-economical conditions of the Guptas, and also religious practices. We can know also religion of that period. Kalidas books. After this Kalidas, next to Kalidas, he wrote dramas and all the things. Somadeva Suri, he wrote Katha Sarissagar. Somadeva Suri. Originally Somadeva Suri, he was Kashmir poet. Kashmir poet Somadeva Suri, he wrote a book called Katha Sarissagar. Katha Sarissagar. This Katha Sarissagar speaks about Guptas. According to this Katha Sarissagar, Guptas, they extended their kingdom towards Southeast Asian countries. Gupta's empire extended towards the Southeast Asian countries, and also Indian culture spread to the Southeast Asian countries. That is Cambodia, especially Cambodia, Angkor Wat of the Cambodia. It was biggest group of the temples. It is the biggest group of the temples in the world. Angkor Wat, biggest group of temples in the world. Originally this Angkor Wat area, biggest group of the temples were constructed around 11th century AD. But the Indian empire established there during the time of the Gupta's period. Kaundinya, Indian king, Indian origin, Kaundinya, he established a kingdom at Cambodia, that is Angkor Wat. The spread of the Indian culture to the Angkor Wat we are knowing from the Somadeva Suri, Katha Saris Sagar. Somadeva Suri, remember Somadeva Suri, he was Kashmiri poet. He was a Kashmiri poet. Somadeva Suri, he was a Kashmiri poet. Next to another books, some astrological books also, astrological books also composed during that period, like Aryabhatta, he wrote Aryabhattiyam. Aryabhatta, Aryabhattiyam and Surya Siddhantika. He also wrote Surya Siddhantika. We know that Aryabhatta was the first in the world to use the value of 0. And he started decimal system with 0. Aryabhatta, he was one astrologer of that period. He was astrologer and also mathematician, lived in the court of the Gupta's period. Varahamihira wrote Bruhat Samhita. Varahamihira wrote Bruhat Samhita. This book, Bruhat Samhita, also speaks about astrology and astronomy. Astrology and also astronomy. Astrology and astronomy. Bruhat Samhita. This is very famous book, Bruhat Samhita. And Brahmagupta of that period. Another person, Brahmagupta. Brahmagupta, another scientist of that period, another astrologer of that period, he wrote Brahma Siddhantika. Brahma Siddhantika. So these books speaks about development of these books. They speaks about development of science and technology during that period of the Guptas. So this is about literary sources of the Guptas. So in this video we completed the literary sources of the Guptas. In the next video we are going to discuss about the origin of the Guptas. Okay, good luck.